Welcome back into another edition of the Arrowhead Pride Rapid Reaction Show. I am Steven Serda, joined as always by my guy Rocky Magaña, Kramer Sansone in the background, making sure we keep this thing afloat. Rocky, the Kansas City Chiefs, for the 8th consecutive season, are the champions of the AFC West. They clinch a playoff spot, and now we don't know exactly who they're going to play just yet, but they are locked into the 3 seed in the AFC postseason race now. And that was probably the most impressive half of football that they played in like 2 or 3 months. We're going to get into all of this, obviously, right here on the Arrowhead Pride Rapid Reaction Show. But Rocky, man, the first half had me sweating again, had me frustrated, had me being like, man, it's New Year's Eve. I'm going to have to get on this post-game show and just be upset and be annoyed because of another annoying, frustrating performance from the Kansas City Chiefs. And the second half of that football game was a legitimate playoff atmosphere. Cincinnati is now eliminated from postseason contention. Their season was on the line in this one. And that was just simply the most impressive half of football that the Chiefs have played in months. Like, it was the first time in months it felt like everything was clicking and their playmakers were making plays. And I'm kind of floating right now. Like, this is as good as I felt about this team in a long time, Rocky.
You love to see it. You love to see the Chiefs punch their ticket to the playoffs with a Cincinnati Bengals loss. You love to see them come into Arrowhead Stadium, sans Joe Burrow, and then watch the defense step up in the second half and just close the game out and put their foot right on their throats and just put them to sleep and just end any hope that the Cincinnati Bengals had of actually making a late season run and making the playoffs. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Listen, no illusions of grandeur about this Chiefs team. But listen, we're not closing out 2023 on a negative note, Chiefs Kingdom. I'm only talking about the positive today. I'm only talking about the guys who did good. I will not talk about the wide receiver whose name shall not be mentioned or anybody else who failed to step up in this game. You know what? The guys who did stepped up in a big way. And this was the best second half of football that we've seen out of the Chiefs in recent memory. And the defense put up a goose egg after giving up 17 points in the first half. But let's be honest, that 17 points isn't a fair 17 points because the Chiefs gave them a short field after Mahomes' fumble. You can't say enough about this pass rush. You can't say enough about Chris Jones being a big game guy. And you can't say enough about the development of George Karlaftis from a guy who was a bull rush only guy coming in the league to being a multiple pass move guy with multiple looks, beating OBJ Jr. with the sack late in the fourth quarter. You love to see it, Steven Serda. There's nothing that makes me happier than watching George Karlaftis beat Orlando Brown Jr. for the sack. I mean, it's the best possible way I could end 2023.
It was, man, and that first half wasn't a lot to feel great about in the first half of this, aside from Isaiah Pacheco, who I think tons of credit to Pacheco coming back from concussion last week, clearing the protocol, not really being able to get on the practice field this week. And without his performance in the first half, I think this is a much tougher football game in the second half. Thankfully, the Chiefs go into halftime only trailing 17-13 because Isaiah Pacheco just went absolutely insane in the first half and kind of carried the offense. Because Rocky, at halftime, Rashee Rice had 1 catch on 1 target for 18 yards. Travis Kelce had 1 target at 0 receptions. And now Kelce is quiet on the day, doesn't wind up with a huge stat line or anything. I tend to think a lot of that, and I'd have to go back and watch it, but I tend to think a lot of that has to do with Cincinnati trying to take him away because we know that's what teams are doing. Their initial read is take Travis Kelce away and then make the other guys beat you. But Rashee Rice in the second half just goes absolutely insane, finishes the game with 127 yards, including a 67-yard reception, which was the longest play of the Chiefs season. And also, Rocky, Rashee Rice running like a real big boy vertical route and Patrick Mahomes just hitting him in stride. Like, the only thing that could have made that better is if he would have found the end zone. But Like, that's what we've been looking for from Rashee Rice all season. And I think that was my biggest gripe about the first half of this one was like, I understand them trying to take away Kelsey, but Rashee Rice needs more than one target. Like, what are we doing here? And they finally opened things up and got him super involved in the offense. And it was reported this morning that, they were going to get him more looks, get Richie James and McCole Hardman more involved. And, you mentioned MVS, who had, again, some of his brutal moments. I hope we see less and less of him in the playoffs. But, man, Rashee Rice, they really have something in him. And it feels like he is truly ascending late into the season right now, where teams are going to have to start focusing on him a little bit more as the Chiefs' legitimate number one threat, which will hopefully open things up for Travis Kelce. And we'll see some monster games from Travis Kelce here in the near future. Now, I would assume that the way this has played out, we're going to see a lot of people sit in week 18 against the Chargers because the Chiefs are virtually locked in to where they're at right now. And there's not really much they can do to improve their situation. But man, what a way to win the division against that Cincinnati Bengals team. And we saw how chippy everything was and how much these teams legitimately dislike each other. And for the Chiefs to go out and put that together in the second half, like, I don't think this team is going to win a Super Bowl, Rocky, but at least they gave us something to hold on hope for. Like, at least they gave us something to say, like, okay, that team can go win a playoff game. That team can give some teams some issues, especially if the defense plays like this. Like, man, that was everything we could have hoped for, and it's something that we've been chasing from this team for 2 months.
Rashee Rice is officially the most successful rookie wide receiver on any Andy Reid team. No wide receiver in any of Andy Reid's teams has ever had as many receiving yards as Rashee Rice has had this year. He passed Deshaun Jackson and Jeremy Maclin, two very good wide receivers. It's great seeing him make a big boy play. I love the big boy play down the field. I think the Chiefs came out with a great game plan today, and they came out and they said, you know what? Isaiah Pacheco, like sure, he's coming off injury, clear concussion protocol. If we get him, we're putting it straight down their throats. We're going heavy Isaiah Pacheco, and because we're going right at the Bengals, beat up defense, and we're going to make them play big boy football. And I think that Andy Heck, after last week's performance, jumped on the offensive line a little bit and literally challenged them to say, go out there and show me that you're one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. You say you are, people say you are, but you weren't last week. Go out there and show me who you are and what you're made of. We're going to run it down their throat, and I want you to plow those dudes over and open up some holes. And they did. And it was a great game plan of feeding Isaiah Pacheco and then looking for Rashee Rice in the short intermediate game and to open up the big play downfield. And you said I mentioned the person who I will not mention. I did not mention him, Steven Serda. I refuse to mention any negativity this week.
I'd prefer to never talk about him again, too.
This is all positive Rocky today. I'm ending the year on a note of bliss, turning over a new leaf. No more most negative guy in Kansas City sports media like some people say in the comments. Like, I'm focusing on the positive here. The offensive line, they were a bunch of bulldozers today. They opened up holes. Mahomes played a smart game with the exception of holding on to the ball and getting strip sacked in the first half. That one negative play. I said before the game on Twitter, I said, if the Chiefs have more sacks and defensive turnovers than they do offensive penalties and turnovers, whichever number equals up to the most, that's which way the game's going. And guess what? Late in the game, the defense came in and they just went on like a sack shopping spree. They just it was like Oprah was out there just giving away sacks to everybody, and it's exactly what you need to see a team do something in the playoffs. Now, I don't like the Chiefs are not like the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC are the ones to beat right now. Like, let's just be honest.
Yeah. Hung 56 points today.
Yeah. They are the team to beat. The Chiefs don't look to be that team this year, but they are a team where their defense is good enough to muddy things up for a decent offense and to make the game interesting. As long as their offense can play smart, which I think they did. They said, okay, let's pare it down. Let's play smart football on offense. And let's just not shoot ourselves in the foot and let our defense go out there and win us the game.
So let's zone in on the defense here, because you talk about what they were doing in the second half and all of those sacks that they accumulated. It seemed like all of them were in the fourth quarter and like crunch time and critical moments of the game. And it was absolutely incredible. And yeah, we were talking about the first half performance because it was not the best performance that we've seen from this Kansas City Chiefs defense by any stretch of the imagination in the first half of this one. Like Jake Browning was really doing a really good job and finding a lot of success against them in the first half, just utilizing his legs, creating first downs. They were running the ball well. They were using his legs and using the run to open up things down the field. Like they were creating plays against this defense and having a lot of success. And it's not unlike what we've seen from the Chiefs defense recently, where we've talked about it a ton right here, Rocky, where the Chiefs defense has been getting off to a lot of these slow starts. And it's really been over the last like 5 or 6 games, going back to that first matchup against the Raiders where we really started to see it happen. And it seems like it's been a common theme every single week. Now, I'm kind of hoping that some of that is the Chiefs know, like, this is how teams are going to attack us now, but we've got 6 weeks of it on film. And then we're going to get into the playoffs and Steve Spagnuolo is going to do what he always does and just throw everything at you, like out of the gate, and just totally muck everything up and totally just throw you for a loop and give you all kinds of issues. And so I'm hoping that's the case and that's what's going on, because we've seen this defense turn it on when they want to. And it didn't seem like they were coming at the Bengals all that hard in the first half of this one. But in the second half, when they needed plays, that defense stepped up and it was all kinds of guys making plays. Justin Reed was making plays finally. Willie Gay, who has had some really bad moments in recent weeks, comes up with a huge 4th and goal stop to give the Chiefs the ball back, which led to the Chiefs taking the lead. Like those guys came up with the huge plays. And then you talk about the sacks. Like I don't even recall if they had a sack in the first half, but they wound up sacking Jake Browning 6 times in this game. Justin Reed had back-to-back sacks in the fourth quarter. George Karlaftis had 2 sacks in the second half to put him over double-digit sacks on the season. And then finally, you're looking for number 95, critical moment of the game. At the very end, they need a big stop. Chris Jones comes up with a huge sack on Jake Browning. Like, this defense has the horses and they have the playmakers to win you football games in the postseason. It's just we need to see them make some adjustments here, because it does seem like the book is out on how to give them some problems until they wind up adjusting to that stuff. But I'm hoping that's a little bit of gamesmanship by Spag, saying like, I know we're going to get into the playoffs. Now they've secured that. So now they can kind of chill for week 18 against the Chargers and get ready for whoever their wild card weekend opponent's going to be. And it's going to come down in all likelihood to possibly the Miami Dolphins, possibly the Buffalo Bills, as those teams are going to go head to head in week 18 to decide who wins the AFC East. So like, it's not going to get easy in the wild card round, but it seems like that's who the Chiefs are likely going to be facing in the first round of the playoffs. And so now it gives you an opportunity to say, we've already played both of these teams. Now we've got some time to assess things, try to get healthy, and we can rest some of the key guys in week 18 and get ready to try to go win a playoff game, which, you know, a few weeks ago, I was not convinced that this team was capable of doing. And I certainly didn't believe they could do it after last week's loss to the Raiders.
Oh man, I'm so happy that I was spending time with my family instead of doing that podcast with you last week. I'm sorry I wasn't here at Cheese Kingdom, but hanging out with my son on Christmas Day was much, much better time spent than talking about that garbage game. And I'm with you. I didn't think the Chiefs had it in them to win a playoff game up until now either. But even in the first half, let's talk about Charles Omenihu. Pretty much single-handedly on a couple of plays kept the Bengals from running away with this in the first half. Like, he had that one batted pass on second down and then a couple of pressures and penetrations where you're starting to really see him come on and say, okay, I see what Veach saw in him when he signed him. And he's been good since he came back. It may not be showing up in the stat sheet, but Omenihu is a definite factor on that defense. And one thing that you saw in the first half was you saw that the game got super, super chippy, but you also saw that the Chiefs were like no, like not today. Like, this is not happening in our house. We remember the crap you said about us earlier this week. Remember the crap you said about us last year. We know who you are. You guys talk a lot, but we don't think you can back it up. And Sneed heard what Jamar Chase said about him. And guess what, Jamar Chase, you had a play or two, but on the whole, you had a soft day, pussycat. He didn't do a lot. And that seems to be a little bit of a theme when people try to talk trash on L'Jarius Sneed and the Chiefs secondary. And so maybe you might want to think twice about that before you try to come into Arrowhead and talk some trash for a second straight time before you get packed and sent home to end your season, Mr. Jamar Chase, Mr. Superstar, Mr. Guy who didn't show up when his team needed him. Yeah, put that on your pipe and smoke it, Cincinnati Bengals fans, Mr. Mayor of Cincinnati, Mr. Skyline Chili, you bunch of chili eaters. Go home. Go home. We're done with you. We packed your bags. Time to go back to your sad city and watch Reds baseball next year and watch another losing team.
Jamar Chase finishes this contest. Three receptions, 41 yards, which is pretty typical for a guy who's lining up against L'Jarius Sneed for virtually this entire season. And I thought it was a cool moment after the game. You saw Spags kind of go up to Sneed and like go head to head with him and like just be like, "Hey man, I love you. Like, thank you for fighting through this injury because I know you're out there hurting, trying to cover these guys who are like one of the best wide receiver tandems in the NFL." And L'Jarius Sneed is a first-team All-Pro corner who has gotten the toughest assignments of any cornerback in the NFL and has stepped up and shut down every team's opposing number one wide receiver in every matchup possible this season. He's on an unbelievable run, and today he was fighting through injury, and you could tell he was out there hurting, but L'Jarius Sneed should be this team's number one priority to lock up in the offseason. Like, he has been that tremendous this year and has been that important to the defense. Like, all of the movement and everything that the Chiefs do in their secondary and everything that Spags asks those guys to operate and like it just doesn't function without a player like L'Jarius Sneed just being on an island all by himself and you being like, oh, that guy can go out there and hold Jamar Chase to 3 catches for 41 yards. He can go out there and do that to A.J. Brown and Justin Jefferson and Stephon Diggs, like the best wide receivers in all of the NFL. L'Jarius Sneed has been better than all of them every time he has gone up against any of them this season. And it's incredible. He's been so amazing to watch this season.
You can't blitz Justin Reed on back-to-back plays where he gets a sack if you don't have L'Jarius Sneed out there locking down a number one with faith in him. Like you're right. Like, he is the number one priority. There's there's not been a more impressive player on this defense this year than L'Jarius Sneed. He like he has an argument that even though he may not have the turnovers, he's been possibly the best coverage cornerback in the NFL this year. Like, there's not probably another cornerback that has the same coverage resume of shutting guys down like L'Jarius Sneed has had. And you're right. There was that play where he timed it so perfectly coming over the shoulder of Jamar Chase in the second half and then pulling the ball down away. Beautiful. I mean, that was the most textbook play by a cornerback that you could ask for. And it was beautiful to see because it's something that he just does on a regular basis this year. It's something where you can trust him. Like, there's no nervousness going into a game with him in the matchup, right? Like, they just basically say, you're our John Wick, study the other guy. Where they called him Liam Neeson, right? They called him their taking guy. Basically, you have a certain set of skills. You study the guy, you go out there and you just dismantle him, which is what he's done on a regular basis.
Yeah. He's just been incredible all season long. Trent McDuffie had another nice day today. We know he's still a playmaker, even though I think he's been getting overshadowed a little bit because L'Jarius Sneed has been so special this season. Like, it's when you talk about the best corners in the NFL, like obviously Jalen Ramsey is still in that discussion. Jalen Johnson for the Chicago Bears is having an incredible year. Marshawn Lattimore for the Saints, who's on IR right now, was having a tremendous season before he got put on the shelf. But none of them has played as well as L'Jarius Sneed. None of them has been as locked down as L'Jarius Sneed. I believe he's the only one in of the group of guys that you would consider like truly elite corners who hasn't allowed a touchdown this season. Like, he has been that amazing. And we're at the end of the regular season. Like, he is a legitimate bona fide first team All-Pro cornerback. And the Chiefs absolutely have to re-sign him this offseason because he is that important to everything that they do on the defensive side of the ball. But we talked about the pass rush and just everything that they put together there. Like, just the atmosphere of this thing. And it wasn't great to start the second half. Like, the Chiefs go 3 and out to begin things on offense. And you're already kind of feeling like, All right, more of the same, more of this. And then the defense finally gets rolling. And once the defense got rolling, then the offense started clicking and the protection started working. And I totally agree with you. Like, I think the offensive line, who has been very up and down, especially the interior. Like, we know about the struggles of the tackles, and Wanye Morris had some bad moments today. Like, he directly gave up the forced fumble on Trey Hendrickson on Patrick Mahomes, which ended up being their only turnover of the game. Like, that was on Wanye Morris. Like, he got absolutely just destroyed by Trey Hendrickson. We know the tackles are still an issue, but where the Chiefs have all of their money and where their offensive line is strongest is on the interior. And the interior has been struggling lately, and the interior has been letting them down. And I think that was the biggest difference today, where the offense couldn't find a groove in the first half, but the reason they were still in this football game going into halftime is because Isaiah Pacheco was going absolutely nuts, and a lot of it had to do with that offensive line and them opening up holes for him in the rushing game, because Isaiah Pacheco was absolutely electric today. Like, when he gets out into space, and I just feel like it doesn't happen enough because he still kind of lacks the vision of, like, you know, your truly elite NFL running backs. But when he gets out there and he gets going, he is so fun to watch. Like, he is truly just running angrier than anyone I've ever seen. Like, he is just like, I am ready to get into a car accident. Like, I am ready to go face first into a brick wall right now. And that is so important. And you talk about that on offense and how important that is for them. Like we saw today, and it's something we've been screaming for weeks. Like, simplify it, run the football, use that to open up things downfield. We even got a 40-yard deep ball to Justin Watson today, Rocky. like it actually worked. And Travis Kelce only has 16 receiving yards. And you're like, okay, you're going to be able to get Kelce involved more in the playoffs. And you know you're going to have the good stuff for that Hall of Fame player once you get into the postseason. But Rashee Rice is a legitimate baller. Rashee Rice is the Chiefs' number one wide receiver right now. And we'll see what they do in the offseason if they bring in another veteran, because Rashee Rice, maybe he's not a total all-around number one wide receiver, but they don't got anybody who's even close to as talented as he is right now on the roster. And so we're finally seeing him get totally worked into the offense. Like, he is a bona fide number one for this group. And we saw it today. Let's expand his route tree into the playoffs, because it seems like he's got enough juice to win downfield if you give him a chance. They just haven't used him like that all year. And then lean into the running game, and that'll open things up. And that's how they win on offense. And the defense is so damn good, you can win football games that way. I don't know why it took us 17 weeks to get here, but that's the recipe. Just please keep doing that moving forward, because you can win football games like that.
100%. And Rashee Rice is like his superpower. He's not the fastest guy in the world. He's not even the tallest guy in the world. He's not the most agile guy in the world, but he is so strong. He is a strong, like sucker. And like when he, you saw him on that release on the big play, he just basically swiped the cornerback's arm off of him and ran right by him. That's something you see out of Jamar Chase a lot, is that people underestimate his strength, and it's hard to jam him because he is so stinking strong. And that's something that the Chiefs have in Rashee Rice, which is why he has inside-outside ability, and he's so valuable. And they do need to continue to expand his route tree, which I agree with you 100%. And man, hats off to Pacheco. You're right, 100%. Like when you have, like, there are guys on this team right now that seem like they're checked out, and they have no interest in taking accountability for their actions. They have no interest in stepping up when their number's called. But then you have guys like Isaiah Pacheco who are aching to get the ball in their hands, who are just saying, Coach, put the ball in my hands and I got you. You know, Rashee Rice, he's one of those guys. Isaiah Pacheco, he's one of those guys. There's a lot of guys on defense that say, call my number and I'm going to make it happen, Big Red. You know, dial me up, you know. And I think that they're going to that they're sitting on Kelce a little bit, kind of like lulling people to sleep a little bit for the playoffs. You're right. I think they'll probably play him a little bit next week. They'll try to get him that 1,000 yards since he's so close early in the game. And sometime in the first half, if they get him that 1,000 yards, and they'll bench him for the rest of the game. But I think moving forward, like you're talking in the playoffs, we're talking Kelce, Pacheco, Rice. That is your offensive game plan, right? and then you sprinkle in plays to Watson or Gray or whoever else.
Richie
here or
James
there.
had a couple of
Richie
nice
James,
plays today.
yeah, sure. And like Richie James made a mistake, trying to field that ball on the 1 yard line on that punt. But guess what? Like it's fine to make mistakes if you make up for those mistakes and you make the play the next time your number is called. That's why the receiver who I won't talk about him today, because guess what? Like his number was called and he dropped the ball and tried to show up Mahomes and said, "Oh, you put it a little bit behind me." I'm not going to talk about that. But when his number was called again, he didn't make the play. That's all I'm going to say. But James, his number was called a second time, and he had a definitive, like, game-sealing punt return. He set the offense up with the short field in a critical moment in the game. And so, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be able to make more positive plays than you do negative plays, and then let the defense carry you. And I think the Chiefs are finally realizing that, and that's exactly what they did. And the Chiefs are the kings of the AFC West yet again. They're wearing the crown. It's not quite as shiny as it was in years past, but it's a crown nonetheless.
And I think today in the second half too, it was so apparent that it felt like for the first time in probably since week 1 of this season, that it didn't feel like Mahomes was trying to do too much. It didn't feel like Patrick Mahomes was going out there on every offensive snap and saying, "I got to carry everybody and I got to drag you guys to the finish line to get a win." Like, for the first time, the offense was exciting and they were making plays and it seemed like it was actually gelling. Like, I don't think we've seen that kind of performance all season, Rocky. Like, I don't think we've seen them explosive downfield to Rashee Rice, Isaiah Pacheco ripping off chunk gains, like Rashee Rice over the middle, 25-yard gain. Like, we haven't seen that kind of stuff from them all year, and we just haven't seen it look like it's in sync ever. And it feels like they finally got something there. And yeah, you won't mention MVS. I'll mention him. I'd be totally fine with him cutting him before the playoffs at this point. That's not going to happen, but it's pretty safe to say he is not going to be on this team because he has been an absolute liability anytime he is on the field. And the more we can get him off the field moving forward, I am absolutely in favor of that because he's got no business getting any snaps on this offense moving forward. But man, this was the most impressive win of the season. And we can't get out of here, Rocky, without mentioning Harrison Butker, who, as annoying as I am sometimes with Andy Reid's conservative nature when it comes to red zone field goals, like, Harrison Butker is just absolute money. 6 for 6 today. And was the only person that scored in the second half. Just all field goals. But that's all they needed because the defense was so tremendous. Like, it's going to come up huge at some point in the postseason that Harrison Butker is having an absolute career year, and he has been absolutely lights out this season for them. And he's been the most reliable kicker in the NFL this year, and it's really not even close. Like, he's just been absolutely tremendous. You still want to see the Chiefs score touchdowns at the end of the day, but it is nice having Butker in your back pocket.
I mean, it was beautiful because the Chiefs knew this game. They didn't have to try to go for it on 4th and short. They didn't have to score touchdowns. They knew that if they walked away with 3 points on every single drive, that the defense was going to hold, and that they could ride Harrison Butker's golden leg to victory. And he is having an all-pro season. He may not have as many points as some other kickers, but I mean, he's missed 1 field goal all year long. And there is not a single kicker in the NFL with as much postseason experience and success currently as Harrison Butker. I mean, there might be a couple guys who have some postseason success, but recently, he has.
I don't even think Justin Tucker's played.
No, right? Not even Justin. Yeah. And who has as many game-winning field goals in the postseason, including last year's Super Bowl, right? I mean, Harrison Butker is the most the most playoff season kicker, the most clutch kicker in the NFL currently. And last year he was injured, so he had a down year for him. But now you see him healthy, and you see this guy. He's the best there is. There isn't a better kicker than him in the NFL right now. And he doesn't have as many opportunities as some other guys because the offense has struggled to move the ball. But if you have a kicker where you get it anywhere within 65 yards and you think, we got a shot at that, like that's a weapon. That is a weapon on special teams. And the Chiefs are lucky to have him. And he brought the AFC West title home today.
I do, and thinking about him and thinking about Travis Kelce before we get to comments, and I see some Bengals fans kind of in the comments section right now, just kind of talking trash. Sorry, you guys are headed home. No playoffs for the Cincinnati Bengals, even though Jake Browning went on a nice run. I'm not even trying to talk trash, but you guys are the ones that are in our comments section talking trash after the Chiefs just took down their 8th straight division title against your team in very impressive fashion. But just thinking back to Butker's struggles last season and how he started the year banged up, and it seemed like he was never really healthy. Like, to come back this season and prove like, last season was the anomaly. This is really who I am. I am one of the NFL's premier kickers. It was tremendous. And I do kind of wonder, with Travis Kelce being so much quieter recently, and what you were talking about, Rocky, like, with it seems like maybe they're just kind of dialing him back, maybe trying to get him ready for the postseason. We're also talking about a player who, for the first time in his entire Hall of Fame career, has really battled through a lot of injuries this season. And we've seen him multiple times this year come up limping and look like he is just out there really, really struggling. So I do wonder too, if some of this is just, we got to get these other guys reps and see what we got in them. And we got to get Kelce healthy for the playoffs. And so I wonder if some of that is strategic, and, come wild card weekend, we'll really see them unwrap Travis Kelce again and see the Hall of Fame caliber tight end that we all know and love. But I just thought that was a good point by you. But let's get to the comments before we get out of here, Kramer. From Peyton, we ain't done yet. We are still the defending champs. These teams don't want to see the Chiefs in the playoffs. Well, prior to today, I don't think I think there's lots of teams that would have been like, we'd be happy to play the Chiefs the first round of the playoffs. But yeah, let's go. Let's just ride the wave, Peyton. Yeah, nobody wants to see the Chiefs wild card weekend of the playoffs after that performance against the Cincinnati Bengals.
How wild is it that the Chiefs are the underdogs heading into the playoffs? We're saying, nobody was going to respect the Chiefs in the playoffs. They could actually play that chip on their shoulder where nobody believes in us.
If it makes a difference, let's go.
And listen, I mean, I don't think we're going to win the Super Bowl this year. I love the Chiefs. But if we get to the Super Bowl, I'm picking us. Heck yeah, I'm picking us if we get to the Super Bowl. And I'm going to pick us in every single game, because you know what? A game at a time, you always got a chance. And so we're not done yet. We still got a lot to work on.
Yeah, but as fun a win as they've had all season long. So I'll take it. Sneed is a free agent, him or Chris Jones? Well, I mean, I tend to think that this is Chris Jones' last season as a Kansas City Chief. I still think he's a tremendous player, and I think that he is still one of the most important members of their defense. But I just think that they have too many other decisions to make on the defensive side of the ball, and they have too many other decisions to make along the offensive line, in the wide receiver room. Like, there's just too many things for you to go out there and sign a 30-plus-year-old defensive lineman to a $34 million a year contract. Like, that's what he's going to command on the open market in all likelihood. And L'Jarius Sneed, while he deserves to probably be the highest paid cornerback in the NFL, and that's going to be the kind of money that he's looking for, that's still going to be a lot cheaper than paying Chris Jones top of the market value, which is absolutely what we know he wants. So I will take the first team all-pro corner who is significantly younger and coming off the best season of his career.
100%. And, the contract here is undefeated. We all know this. But it's not just Sneed or Jones. Like you said, it's Sneed and $20 million or Chris Jones.
Yeah.
Right? And you take Sneed and $20 million, you take the age. Chris Jones is a Kansas City legend. He'll always be loved here in Kansas City. He'll always be respected and talked about in reverence, just like Neil Smith is. And Neil Smith moved on later in his career. Jamal Charles moved on later in his career. Like, that happens with guys, right? It doesn't make them any less Chiefs for life. But in this instance, I think that you got to go with Sneed. You got to go with what he brings you in the secondary, and you got to go with you pay a guy for what he's going to do, not for what he has done. And so you go with Sneed in that instance.
And the Chiefs are obviously going to be shorthanded at defensive tackle next year. They're shorthanded there now, and they still have Chris Jones. But you got to love what you're seeing in George. You got to like what you're seeing in Charles Omenihu, who you signed to a reasonably sized contract this offseason. The jury's still out on Felix, their first round pick, who just hasn't had an opportunity to see the field that much this season, but I don't think that really says that much about him. I just think it says how deep they are at the edge position. So,
yeah, the real issue is, because we know Jones is going to be gone, is can you retain Mike Dana? That's the real question on the defensive line, because then you also got to re-sign or upgrade Derek Nottie as well. So there's actually 3 defensive tackles that we're losing in the offseason. So the interior defensive line is going to be a complete rebuild one way or the other.
And Dana, for as well as he's played this season, those second tier pass rusher contracts, still pretty sizable contracts. Like, that's what the Chiefs got Charles Omenihu on. So like, Mike Dana's going to be a hard player to retain too. So the Chiefs are going to have a lot of question marks along that defense. From Josh, the simplified game plan was needed. I believe we will get it right. I think we were trying too much with what we have. I totally agree. I think we've been talking about it for weeks right here, Rocky. It's all of the things that Andy Reid loves to incorporate into the offense, like the trick plays and the like we saw last week, like that fumble play where it was like a fake handoff to Patrick Mahomes, and like it was just a total disaster. And all the motion that they like to run, like, yeah, I love all of that stuff too. But it just seems way too complicated for the personnel that you have this season. So let's dumb it down. Let's protect the football. Let's score points when we can get points, and let's play defense, because that seems like the best way for this team to win this season.
Listen, you can have the most beautiful figure skating routine in the world planned out. If you put a hippo in ice skates, it's not going to look good. And that's kind of the way the Chiefs offense has been this year. You didn't have the horses to do what you wanted to do. And at some point, you gotta play to what you have, which is what they did this game. And what they have is still really good. It's not a traditional Andy Reid offense. It's almost like a short power game offense, right? Like you got with Isaiah Pacheco, Rashee Rice, and then tight ends. Like it's almost like you're playing basketball and just throwing a bunch of power forwards out there and saying, all right, we're going to the hole every single time, and we're going to play, within the key and see what we get, and just try to out rebound people.
And just what have we seen all year long? That this defense can go toe to toe with any team in the NFL. This defense can put you in position to win football games if the offense can just not turn it over and not put the defense in unfavorable situations. And it's really as simple as that. It took 17 weeks to get here, but I think we got a good glimpse of what it could be in the playoffs if they can just put that up. This team can still go toe to toe with a lot of these top teams in the NFL, and they can still win tough games in the postseason if they can simply not turn the ball over on offense and the defense plays at an elite level, which we have seen them do for a vast majority of the season. But
Serda, what if this was Andy's plan all along?
I don't believe that, but it would be great if it was, and they just go on an absolutely insane run in the playoffs. I am here for that. That would be a lot of fun. But I tend to think a lot more of it has to do with, no, they'll figure it out. It's week 17. They're not figuring it out. We got to do something else. Like, I think it's a lot more of that than it is, this was the plan. Now we got into the playoffs. Finally, we clinched our spot. We're good to go. We clinched the division. We're in. Now we can really deploy the real game plans. Like, I there's some of that, but not to the extent that we've seen the Chiefs struggle this season. But he's Rocky Magaña. Again, the Kansas City Chiefs win 25-17. They clinched their 8th straight AFC West division title. Probably can expect to see some of the starters sit next week against the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chiefs can't really improve their situation as far as postseason seeding goes, as the Ravens clinched the number 1 overall seed in the AFC in week 17. So plenty to keep you caught up on at Arrowhead Pride all throughout this week. So make sure you're locked into arrowheadpride.com. You can follow Rocky on Twitter at Rocky Magaña. Kramer, go ahead and come up to the stage because it's New Year's Eve. And so we got to celebrate with the whole squad. He's Kramer Sandstone. You can follow him on Twitter at Kramer Talks. As always, please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review everything that we are doing right here on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network. And boys, it's New Year's Eve. I'm looking forward to sitting on my couch and doing absolutely nothing. I'm not a big New Year's Eve person, but I'm happy that I got to celebrate a Chiefs win with you guys this season, and we're going back to the playoffs so we can stop stressing at least for a couple of weeks.
Here, here, baby. Happy New Year's, Chiefs Kingdom.
Happy New Year's. Glad you guys got a victory.
Before we get out of here, I want to remind you guys to stick around after the break, too. We'll have all the post-game press conferences available for you. So stay locked into the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network. We will talk to you guys tomorrow on the next edition of the Arrowhead Pride Report.